Welcome to Last Neanderthals podcast. I've got Wali Khan, my co-host, who's joining me online. First podcast
Hello,
online.
how's it going? How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Trying to look for a part-time job. Trying to run this thing. It's hard to be consistent.
Yeah, it is hard work to be fair, but we're managing, we're pushing through.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, man. You push for this.
Yeah, we
I was
both have.
slacking.
No. Over the past, what is it, like six? It's like 6 months now, isn't it?
Almost, yeah.
Half a year, we've both made sacrifices to keep
Yeah,
it consistent, and it's not even getting like major reviews or anything. So to keep disciplined, we should pat ourselves on the back.
100%. We've done more than 20 episodes without missing a week. You know.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. How are you? You got exams and stuff? They going well?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I've got a couple things left still. I've just had two exams, but I was really unwell. I'm still quite unwell, but I'm getting better. Well, I'm not getting better, but I know it's not anything like too serious now, which is good. But we'll talk about that maybe another time.
Yeah, let's save it for another time. You had me stressing, but you're good.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this month's podcast then. Starting off with Mila Sticevic, I think.
Yes.
The last name was confusing, but I think it was Sticevic. That was a very interesting conversation. What were your key takeaways from it?
My key takeaway was that, well, it was actually from something you said, that just because something is a feminine like trait, right, that a man has, why is it necessarily a negative thing? So if there's
Mm.
a guy, right, he likes, let's say, cooking. Cooking would be considered by many like as a feminine thing. What's the issue with cooking? Like, so when we looking at the man's masculinity sphere, they have like constricted, like they got this very rigid definition of what masculinity is. It's about heading gym and be running companies, and the woman should like sell home, and the man should provide. And I just think like I don't know, they've gone a bit too extreme. What did you make? What was your key takeaway?
Yeah, I think firstly it was what Mila said about it being almost an internet phenomenon. All this anti-woman hate, like anti-feminist hate, whatever you want to call it, which I think I would agree with. And secondly, it was that point as well that why do we have to force things to be masculine? Why can't we just accept that some things in the traditional sense are feminine? We don't need to change those over to now be masculine. We can just accept that they're feminine, but it's not bad to have
Mm.
feminine traits. Like, not everyone needs to be the most feminine person in the world, the most masculine man in the world. Like I said on the podcast, if you've got feminine traits, accept it, embrace it. If you want to be more masculine, like as if it's not in your nature, I don't know if you should really force it on yourself. Like there are some people who are very masculine men. That's good for them, maybe. There are some people who are more feminine. That might be good for them, maybe. I don't know. But just be yourself, improve yourself, but don't like change how we have come to describe the world just to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, like I mean, like, there are more important things than how big your biceps are and whether you have a six pack or not and how much, you're on the
Yeah,
superficial
exactly.
things.
Even if that is considered more masculine and you are not that, just so what? I don't understand. Like, why do you need to get upset? Why do you need to get butthurt? It's like an ego thing almost. Like, no, I am masculine. I am that. Just relax. It's not that deep. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Now that's very well said. We had some interesting comments on this podcast. Should we discuss them?
Yeah. Yes. Some very interesting comments. Let me find them. Okay, so there was a lot of people who disagreed with a lot of the things in the conversation, but this guy was kind of agreeing with what we were saying, the general terms of our conversation. He said, I think a lot of the discourse is pushing young men into the arms of misogynists. It seems to them that this is the only place that wants them. So kind of similar to what we were saying in the podcast, that we need to like not demonize young men. If we want to advocate for these things, if you believe in feminism, if you think it's an important cause, the way to push that forward is not to then demonize men. Maybe they don't understand your point. You have to explain it to them. You can't just say you're an idiot or you shouldn't you shouldn't have an opinion on this because you're a man, you're not a woman. I think all those things are so counterproductive. What do you think?
Or I would rather be stuck with a bear in a forest rather than a man. Have you heard of that?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
54% of women said in Britain that they would rather be stuck with a bear in a forest. Like
54% is crazy. It,
54%.
it's it's interesting though. Do you think if it actually in real life came to that decision, they would still choose the bear, or do you think it's just like I want to say this just because it sounds better?
I hope it's more of that because
Because
like a
it's an
bear would tear them apart.
impactful thing to say, uh, that you would rather be alone with a bear than a man. Like it makes people think like, whoa, like really? Whereas like in real life, if it actually came to that decision, would you really choose that? I don't know. I saw one person comment something quite interesting on this, but I don't think most people know this. Bears are not always very hostile. They can be quite easily avoided if you know what to do. So they were using this as a justification for most women choosing the bear over the man, but I don't think most women know how to avoid confrontation with the bear.
No do men. A bear
Yeah,
they're very
exactly.
territorial. No do men like. I think it's again just demonization of men. I think, like for example, in the midst of the P Diddy hitting Casey, those videos that were leaked. That
Cassie.
discussion kind of, have you seen, did
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
yeah. So this discussion kind of took a spark again that, this is why we would rather be stuck with a bear. And but the thing is, P Diddy is not a representative. A lot of great
yeah,
men, that don't believe in what P Diddy believes in, or that don't act like how P Diddy does. There are a lot of male great models, and I think just demonizing men and saying all men are bad, is not productive. And like vice versa, like just because a man has had a negative experience with a woman, that doesn't mean all women are trash. And it's just call out the individuals. I think it's just not productive to be like just generalize and just demonize a whole species.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. You are very right. And I think that situation always shows why you shouldn't idolize or make role models out of these types of people that you don't really know. They're just on the internet. They may have a specific talent, but that doesn't mean they're good people. Stop idolizing celebrities. I think that is so
100%.
important.
Yeah. That situation is so tragic. Like that woman spoke about that in 2016 and no one took her
Yeah,
seriously. Yeah. It turns out
it's
now there's a video
crazy.
footage and she wasn't lying.
Well, you know what's mad? Why has the hotel only just released the CCTV footage?
So the bodyguards were paid 50K
That's
for yeah, the
crazy.
security, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, they should be liable in some way. You should not take money to cover something like that up. That should be illegal,
Yeah,
if I'm being
that should
honest.
be very illegal. I think they should suffer consequences for that.
Yeah, because how can you do that, man? That
Yeah.
is so messed up.
Yeah, that's how P. Diddy has gone away with it. It's either like blackmailing, similar case to the Epstein one, or you just
Yeah.
blackmailing him money. Yeah.
All right. Another person was very critical of feminism. He said society needs strong men, it needs strong fathers. Feminism fights against that and is thus a major driving force in the destruction of society. What do you think?
I don't know what kind of feminism he's on about. I thought feminism was a movement for to empower women. Like for example, um, you know, in Afghanistan, 4.3 million girls can't go to school just because they're girls, they're women. And, in many professions, women are not considered because they're going to get pregnant. I recently had an interview at a job where the woman was the, She was the manager, and she told me, I asked her in the interview, I was like, have you experienced patriarchy in your career? She was like, yeah, like a lot of people didn't hire me because there's that pregnancy thing in marriage. They basically discard you. So I thought that's what feminism is about. I don't know, like feminism that looks down on masculinity. I think that's misandry. I think there's a confusion of in definition. A lot of young men have this hating on men. Those you can't call those women feminist. They're just broken, I think, and vice versa. Men who hate on women, they're that's misogyny. That's not masculinity.
Mm. Yeah, it is interesting though, I would say, because it's one of those terms obviously which doesn't have a one explicit definition. It is quite subjective, and a lot of people, at least online nowadays, have taken it to other things other than just women's advocacy. So I can see why some people would think that, to be honest, because there are things pushing for like I mean, masculinity, as we kind of talked about, is kind of stigmatized now. Like, it's always toxic masculinity and all of these terms, which I think are deeply unhelpful, that are kind of propped up and pushed by feminists in the West, which I think are so unhelpful. And then it leads to resentment like this. Like, this person has clearly heard things coming from people who brand themselves as feminists that he does not like. And it happens the same, this kind of stuff happens with every movement, like the pro-Palestinian movement. There's people who say dumb stuff, and then the people on the other side pick that dumb stuff and say,
Yeah.
oh, look at these guys, they represent the whole movement, which is not the case. But yeah, I think people on the feminist side, I think the rational voices need to become the loud voices. They need to make themselves heard. Bro, if you go on the internet, it is all those like crazy opinions that are really getting pushed about feminism that does make people think like, yo, they don't want any masculine men out there anymore.
It's funny how it's the same thing with like masculinity as well. You got like Tate and all
Yeah,
these red pill, Maron, just people with the wildest opinions getting the most
exactly.
attention. And you're like, oh my God, this is not what it is. This is not what masculinity is. Masculinity is something, that's meant to be positive. Again, like,
Yeah.
I think that's very well said. And this is every movement is a victim of this, you know. All the
Mm.
religions are as well. You get a minority that's extreme, but you then can't just go, all Muslims are terrorists, or all I don't know, all Jews they're anti-Arabs, or things like that. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not okay. It's
exactly.
not okay. Anti-Semitism and all these things are not okay.
Exactly. I agree. Then this person, this other person, kind of commented along those same lines. He said, I think the frustrating thing is most people would agree there are some toxic man-hating feminists. I guess it's fine to say they don't represent feminism, but then you can't pick Andrew Tate and say that he represents men's rights either. Which, yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we said that. I think what we spoke about is misrepresentation of masculinity by Tate.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and
think Mila just asked the question, and then I think we said no, and she said that's interesting.
hmm, what
She
what do you
asked,
make of that?
yeah, I don't think Andrew Tate represents masculinity or men's rights. For me personally, no one represents me other than myself. No one speaks for me other than myself, and that should be the case for everyone else. But most people like to be told what to do. They like to be told what to think. Like I was listening to your guys' podcast on Neanderthals, and you kind of said like people strive for freedom almost, but I don't think most people do, to be honest. I think most people they like rules, they like order, they like someone else to lead them and direct their life, because if you have true freedom, it's a lot harder. You have to make every decision for yourself, or you can just have Andrew Tate tell you what to do. But it's easier. Life's easy. Then you don't have to think. You just do what he says. It's like being a sheep is so much easier.
I
But
think that's
freedom is better.
perfectly said there. Um, yeah, there's a lot of there's very little accountability. There's a concept in psychology called agentic shift. So, have you
Mm.
heard of Milgram experiment? The one where it shocks people when they go to
Oh
crazy
yeah,
shocks, the fake one, right? The reason people say that they went to 450 volts, which is lethal shock, can
yeah.
end someone. A lot of people said it's because the lab person told me thing. They told me to shock the person, so they didn't feel like a sense of responsibility. Or like, let's
That's
say your
mad.
general, right? Like, let's say you're in the army, and your general tells you go and do horrible things, right? You are like, you know what? He's telling me this.
Yeah,
So it's like it is that agentic. You're not the agent, so you're
that's
shifting your
interesting.
agency. You're giving it to someone else. So you're
It's
you're
it,
right. You're right. It makes
that
sense.
reminds me of that that trolley problem where if you shift the trolley over uh the trolley is about to kill five people, or you can push the lever and then it only kills one person. And some people say that they don't want to personally push the trolley. They would rather the five people die because then they're not doing it themselves. It's kind of similar to that,
Yeah,
but
that makes
actually,
sense. Yeah, that's
it's
a
not
very
exactly
interesting way to look at that problem.
uh,
Now, there
it's
is
not
another one.
exactly the same now that I think about it, but it's kind of
But
similar to that.
it touches on the idea of freedom, right? Not freedom,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, freedom. You could say like
choice.
you don't have to make a choice.
Yeah, exactly. The choice
You
is
know,
made for you in the
choice is made
first.
for you. Yes, with freedom, you
Uh,
have to make choice. Otherwise, it's anarchy.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
It's hard to make choices as well, especially difficult choices.
yeah. Because if you're the only person to blame, then you can't say, "Oh, the
Yeah,
government." Da, da, da. You have to blame yourself, and humans don't tend to like that.
exactly. Speaking of not wanting to blame yourself, we spoke about colonialism with Julie on the next podcast, which also got a lot of attention. But let's talk about the full podcast first. So, what were your key takeaways from
My
Julie?
key takeaway was, I mean, it's not quite related to that conversation about colonialism, but just banning social, smartphones in schools.
Mm,
I think that's very important, man. Because kids
yeah,
have no attention span. I think it's very dangerous. I've seen too many kids with, that say wild things, and they've heard it on like social media. You can tell.
yeah,
Yeah,
bro. The next generation, like Adam Grant told us, every generation says the next generation is doomed and horrible. But bro, this next generation is actually, I'm worried, I'm concerned.
yeah,
You sent me an Instagram reel the other day. Well, I think, what was it from? Oh, it was the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul press conference. Bro, that little kid was just saying crazy things. What is going on?
yeah. Now it's actually scary. Like I saw a 4 year old. Sorry, no, he's 7, 6, 7. You know that Andrew Tate meme. Don't like breathe air, don't vape or something like that. He was
Mm,
saying that. I'm like, why are you seeing Andrew Tate online?
yeah,
A
that's
girl
crazy.
6 year on train singing Nicki Minaj song. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, but like majority of people now in our age demographic will not see that as a problem, I think, with young 4-year-old singing Nicki Minaj lyrics. I think majority of people would say, "Oh, so what?"
Yeah,
But I would
that's
say
scary.
that,
That's scary, man. I can't
yeah,
lie.
I agree.
Yeah, but let's get it back to colonialism. I think the interesting thing there was that she's talked about age limit, that how certain age group, like these are very heavy topics, and you have to look at the intellectual development of kids. But then where do you draw the line? Like what age? When do you have to then start telling them, yeah, you know what, you're born in Britain, but your ancestors or the people that have built this country have done horrible things. When do you break the
Yeah.
news to them? As was the burning questions I was left with after that conversation. The one I don't have
Yeah,
an answer for.
that's a good point. I think it's interesting because this one person left quite a long comment. I'm just reading through it now. I think it's an American person, and they were frustrated that we were making the assertion, or Julie was making the assertion, that kids at a particular age would not be able to understand these concepts properly. And this person was saying that that is a ridiculous point to make, that kids are underestimated basically, and that we should be teaching them things like that from a young age. Um, Specifically, she was referring to 11-year-olds. However, I don't know. I don't know if that is particularly accurate. Everyone knows your brain doesn't like really develop. It keeps developing, but it doesn't fully develop, as they say, till you're like 28 or something around those ages. So for 11-year-old to fully grasp complex problems, I don't know if it is the best way to go about it. Especially, I wouldn't want a white British person to hate the country they grow up in and think that they're evil. I just want them to understand the nuance that one group of people is not superior over another group. Your people have done bad as well as all these other people in the world have done bad as well. But also, other people have done good, your people have done good. But that's kind of difficult to explain when you're telling them about how they went over there and they like stole everyone's land, they stole everyone's riches, all of this stuff. You will think these people are just evil, they're inherently bad, because that's kind of how you see the world when you're a kid.
Yeah,
That's how most adults nowadays, not even nowadays, most adults see the world in that way as well. Good versus bad, good versus bad. So for you to say that an 11-year-old would be fully able to grasp these concepts and get their head around it properly, I just think it's a bit naive.
I agree
Oh,
with you. It can really backfire. I can't lie. I think what the most important things that should be taught um, is maybe these basic principles that not everyone. I don't know. Diving into the complicated history which you can't fully cover in curriculum, again, like, you can put a lot of hate into that kid's heart, you know.
yeah,
And the thing is, kids are impressionable. You can manipulate them quite easily. So I don't know who's then teaching these histories. Because a lot of people might be like, let's say, like, it talks about colonialism, but one of the teachers doesn't really want to teach that, and then they start twisting it to the kids.
yeah,
So, things like
yeah.
that. It's like, it can
I
be
think,
very misconstrued. I don't know.
yeah, I think elements of these things should be brought in throughout teaching, like little parts of all these different things, like colonialism and all of that. But to actually have like you know how we would have like topics that would be fully covered for your GCSEs or whatever, to have it covered in that way, I just don't know how helpful that really is, to be honest.
Yeah, it has to be done correctly, man. I think to say
At
like,
that age,
yeah,
at
at
that
that
age,
age,
sorry.
yeah. I think uni, they're very good, right? They teach you about this stuff. They're
Yeah.
very
Even 16-year-olds are calm, but 11-year-olds, like, come on, bro.
yeah,
My
that's a
little
bit too
cousin is 11-year-old right now.
yeah.
And
That's
he's a
crazy. I
smart,
can't lie.
yeah, he's a
Especially for
smart
the
kid as
innocent
well.
brains, man. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you can't, you don't want to like introduce dark concept to these kids of genocides, with Churchill, all these people were responsible for at a young
Yeah.
age. Which someone said like, oh, there was another comment about Churchill. Um,
Yeah, exactly. There's the Bengal famine, and someone was, oh, Churchill didn't cause the Bengal famine. Do your research. Other people obviously replied to him and said he was incorrect, but basically, this guy's point was something along the lines of, those rations were needed for military personnel, for the British Empire, and military personnel were always prioritized for food. However, you go into a different country, you take their resources and you take their food for your own military personnel, and then 4 million people die as a result of that. And you say, oh no, that's not our fault. It's just we always prioritize our military. Did they consent for you to take their food and give it to to your military? Like, it's so ridiculous, man. I don't understand how people like this cannot see their own bias. How are you making an excuse for decision making that led to the deaths of over 4 million people? And then this other guy as well. Churchill was extremely racist, was he? Asking like a rhetorical question. You need to do more research. Yes, he was extremely racist. Like you've clearly looked into what he said about groups of people such as Indians and Pashtuns. He called us animals. He said we were like the worst people on earth just because we wouldn't think that we were subordinate to white people. He called us animals, and he was like, "Oh, we don't. They don't know their place in the world."
This is why when we say in history, these things
And
need
it
to be
just,
eventually taught. This is why we're
yeah,
saying that, you need, just because a guy
just
won a World War II, right? You know, doesn't
yeah,
mean he was
it's
an
so
angel.
stupid.
Like, you know, all
So
these,
people, bro, people cannot think of two things at once. A person can have done good things and they can be a bad person.
yeah.
They can have done good things and bad things. Just a couple quotes from Sir Winston Churchill. Slit eyes and pigtails. He said that he hated people with slit eyes and pigtails. To him, people from India were, quote, the beastliest people in the world next to the Germans, end quote. And then he admitted that he, quote, did not really think that black people were as capable or as efficient as white people, end quote. And yeah, the guy in our comments saying Churchill was racist, was he? Question mark. Yeah, sorry, we just had some technical difficulties there.
My bad, guys.
Khashal has
Be
promised it
more
won't happen
prepared.
again. But we went on a little bit of a rant about Winston Churchill, but now there is another common theme with the comments as well, is along the lines of this guy's comments. Why isn't it taught about the Ottoman Empire that they were colonizers just like the British Empire? Okay, you should know about the Ottoman Empire as well, that it was also bad that they were colonizers, the same as the British. But when I'm talking to a British history teacher about the British curriculum directed to British school students, why would I focus on the Ottoman Empire and not the British Empire? What? It's so ridiculous. Why would I teach them about someone else's history before I teach them about my own history?
Bro,
Uh,
and then you can argue with what about some other country? What about, like,
yeah.
you can never satisfy these people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Just because another country is doing something bad or has done something bad doesn't mean you should do the same thing. Like other people comment, Russia and China don't teach about their dark history. And yes, you say that Russia and China are bad, totalitarian, undemocratic countries that are evil. So then why are you putting yourself on the same pedestal as them? Why is that your benchmark then?
Yeah, and
It's
just because they don't teach it doesn't mean it's a good thing. That's
exactly
exactly the
that's
point we were trying to make. We just because, we are speaking to a British history teacher, we want the curriculum to be better. That does not mean we don't want it better across the whole planet, right?
exactly.
So if I'm anti-war, if I'm speaking about the genocide, against the genocide happening in Palestine, that also means I'm anti-war everywhere, anywhere, whether it's between whatever race, whatever religion, whatever color your skin is. It doesn't matter. That means I'm anti-war,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. This whataboutism is just ridiculous that people love to do in every situation. You're speaking about the genocide happening in Gaza. What about the genocide happening in Sudan? Or what about the Uyghur Muslims in China? Yes, that's also horrible. I don't understand why people think by pointing to other atrocities, you want me to think I'm not as bad because other people are worse. Imagine that being your best defense. Look at these other people that have killed more people than me.
Yeah,
It's not, it's
it's
not, it's not your own defense. Like, no, I'm not doing anything bad. It's, yeah, but those guys are a little worse. Like, come on, what kind of defense is that?
100%, and it's no, it's actually ridiculous. I mean, it's a typical example of performative activism. It's like, if let's say you spoke about global issue, I'm like, oh, what about speak there? Think,
Yeah,
bro, how do you want this person to be every day like tweeting about what's happening in North Korea and then Japan, something bad happened there? Like, how are you gonna actually solve problems? I think it's very easy to speak about many problems and be distracted in everywhere and do all the whatabouts. But how about we focus on one discussion, have a nuanced discussion, have an in-depth discussion about a particular topic, very, very have the parameters just around that conversation, because how else are you going to come to an answer if I'm like, what about Ottoman Empire? Well, I don't
yeah,
have information about Ottoman Empire. Yeah, they have done horrible things in the past, but what? We're speaking about British history,
yeah. With a
you
British
know?
history
What
teacher
what
that we're
about
trying
China's
to
history?
learn from.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think, yeah.
It
Yeah,
is,
this whataboutism, and also I don't know what to call it, andism. I don't know. You know what? Some people like you make a nuanced point and they're like, and
yeah,
what? You can say that about anything. U.S. government is printing money out of thin air, and well, it's
yeah.
gonna affect lives. It's gonna, you can have another recession, Great Depression. This is happening, a genocide happening in Palestine. Well, young kids are dying. Like you can say this whole and like what?
Yeah, it's just lazy. Just have a proper discussion. There's no need to do these stupid things. But
Yeah, to just belittle someone. Do you think you're really belittling someone with that? And like, if you make a good, someone makes a point, and you're like, and
yeah, it's just very ridiculous. I
yeah,
think yeah. Should we move on to the next
yeah.
podcast
Let's move on
because
to the next one. Yeah, we are ranting away.
yeah. So the final podcast for this month was with the GOAT, Gamal
Go.
Yafai, a European boxing champion, Team GB boxer, also the coach who helped me win my boxing fight. He coached me for I think 7 or 6 weeks leading up to my
6 weeks, I
boxing
think.
fight.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, he was the difference between me winning that fight and losing that fight. So yeah, shout out to him because obviously a very good coach, but also a great person, and we had a great conversation. So what were your key takeaways from that?
My key takeaway was about when he realized that world champion was, that world title was out of his reach, how he just came to accept that, and he didn't stay in the sport like just for the money. And this boxing is dangerous, right? You can get seriously hurt. You see many boxers when they you can tell like their heydays are over, or like they're not gonna reach that echelon, right? And then they keep on going there even after they become world champions, like fighters like Muhammad Ali, and they just don't know how to just call it a stop. And then later on they have dementia, they have horrible brain problems, memory problems. It's happened to so many boxers where they have speech difficulties with speech. The guy just, I think, he believes he left the sport at the right time because he was in it for the titles, and when that was out of thinking, he just accepted it.
Mm,
And what was quite interesting is like what bothers him is like the people he lost to he could beat. So
yeah.
that was quite fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah, I think another thing that is really interesting as well is that there's three of them who made it to a very, very high level. So, when people have those conversations, is it talent or is it luck or is it hard work? Like, what is it? They did it not once, not twice, but three times. I think both his other brothers, Galal and Cal, were both Olympic champions, weren't they? Olympic medalists.
So the younger has been Olympic gold medalist, and the older is, I think he may have competed in Olympic, but I don't know if he has a medal. I don't
Oh,
think he
okay.
does. He's got other some kind of medals, but he became a world champion. I think it's WBA. I think it's WBA or IBC. It could be one of those.
Mm.
So that's a world title. He got to world title
Yeah,
level.
that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it is just incredibly impressive that they managed to do it three times and all while being raised by a single mother. So again,
Yeah.
even more impressive.
So incredible, man. Boxers, man, they probably know the concept of pain like no one else.
Mm.
Like imagine like what you did. Imagine doing that as a career.
Yeah,
Do you like because you have had a fight, right? Like a full on in front of crowd, not just like a sparring and what how do you look at do you look at pro boxing you're like wow, has your
yeah.
admiration gone up?
Yeah, it's just I think even when I watch the fights with other people who watch my fight now, they're like, these guys are doing 12 rounds because of how difficult those 3 rounds were. Like I only did a quarter, less than a quarter, because my time, my rounds were 2 minute rounds. These guys do 3 minute 12 rounds of 3 minutes. Bro, that is incredible. It is crazy. And it also makes sense now why professional fighters also build up. They do like 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds. They don't go straight into the deep end with 12 rounds because I don't know what it is, if it's the crowd or whatever. In sparring, you just don't get as tired. In the fight, bro, the first round, like I was gone. Partially maybe because of my illness as well, which I'll speak about when we release that boxing video. But it's just, yeah, the admiration has gone definitely gone up a level because it is
Yeah,
not easy. And just the mental side of things as well, being in the, I don't know if every person who's in the ring thinks this way, but just thinking like, oh, the round's slipping away from me, or oh, I need to do more, oh, I'm so exhausted, how am I going to do more? Just thinking all these thoughts while punches are coming at you and you have to think about blocking and punching back and all of that. It's quite an experience, but it's really fun. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. You also the anxiety that family must go through every time.
Yeah,
You know, because you had head guard on, 16-ounce gloves. Those guys have no head guards and they're 10-ounce gloves and
yeah,
they hit with every ounce of their body. Like their
yeah.
techniques are pretty much near perfect.
They
So for
know how
human
to
to
punch.
endure that kind of suffering, man.
Yeah, is I wouldn't say it's one of the most difficult things in the world because people go through like terrible, terrible things. But for a self-inflicted thing, like for a hobby, for a career, yes, probably. I would
Yeah,
say
I
it is
asked
better.
Gamal this one time when he was training me. I was like, is boxing the most difficult thing you've ever done? I was like, what's the most difficult thing you've experienced in life? He was like, boxing, by far.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man. It's the whole idea of like just performing in front of thousands of people and you're just getting leathered. Man,
I
this is why I
didn't.
love boxers. I think they're like a great example of what mental toughness is and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
tough humans can be.
yeah.
You know?
Exactly, exactly. For my part, I didn't even think about um the negative sides. I just thought, oh, this is gonna be so sick. It's gonna be so fun. I've got to perform like the best I can. But I think there's an added pressure to that as well when you really when it's not just about, oh, I have to just win. It's about I have to perform well. And then in the ring when you're not doing as well as you thought, you're like, sakes, what
Yeah.
do I do now?
Or imagine it's a world title shot now. Your
Exactly.
whole life, you've
Instead of
worked hard towards
in
this.
1,000 people, there's now 10 or 20,000 people.
Yeah. Live in the crowd and there are millions watching online.
Yeah, I think it's actually be more difficult, more pressure on the way up to a title fight where you know one loss can just finish your career. If you're Anthony Joshua, you lose to Ruiz, you know you're getting a rematch, another big fight. If you win that fight, just keeps going. If you are like 5 fights away from a title fight, 6 fights away, and then you lose, or if you're 2 fights even away from your
Yeah.
first title fight and you lose, oh, that's scary for a lot of people. That's their entire like career prospect maybe gone down the drain because
Yeah.
that O is so important in boxing, which is what we spoke to Gamal about. It adds a lot more value, and you've got to remember these boxers, like Gamal said again, they're not getting paid an incredible amount of money until they reach world title level. and then
Yeah,
still at the lower weights, they're still not getting paid as much as most people think. So every fight really, really matters on the way
yeah.
up. Like for
And the
example,
pie is
Tyson.
such a small pie, such few.
Yeah. For
It's not for
example,
everyone.
Tyson Fury loses now. He's still a multi-millionaire. He still can get a rematch with Usyk. Even if he loses to Usyk again, he can still fight Joshua for another massive fight. He's been a world champion. But bro, imagine you're close. You're that close. You're almost there, and then you slip. The pressure there must be when if I win one or two more fights, my whole life can change. I just need to win
Yeah.
this one or two more fights, and then poof, that's crazy.
Experiencing that levels of anxiety, like I watched Gamal's European bout, right, the fight. And towards the end, he's just like he lets it out, man,
Yeah,
screaming, right,
yeah,
relief. That
yeah.
feeling you cannot buy it, man. It must be special. Must be one of the most special feeling. I think it will be similar to when Neanderthal last is in like maybe top 50 or top 20 podcasts in the world, right? You
Inshallah.
know, inshallah,
Yeah,
right? It'll feel
definitely,
like that, right? Yeah, let's hope
definitely.
so.
Uh, we need to we need to get you onto Misfits now. That's the goal.
Yeah,
With
that
with
all that.
with the help of Gamal, we need to get you beating on those man in Misfits.
Working hard, guys.
Yeah, but anything else from that podcast that you wanted to talk about?
That's all, brother. Yeah, it's been a great experience, and yeah, it was fun doing online podcast. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, it is fun. We'll see what people say about it if they enjoy it as well. If so, maybe I think it's good to carry on the reflection podcasts in this way because then we can react to the comments and everything as they come in on each podcast. Because when we film in advance, we can't really react to what people have said about the last two podcasts of the month.
Yeah,
So as long as everyone else is happy with this, we can keep the reflections online.
yeah, it'll take a lot more
Saves
pressure off us. Yeah,
saves a lot of
yeah,
hassle. For the audio listeners, of course, it won't be a problem because we're gonna get the mics and everything sorted in the future, so the audio quality will be a lot better. Khushal had his mic, but it ran out. Something happened, more
yeah.
technical difficulties. Um,
It's the first one, guys. Come on,
yeah, yeah.
stress.
But next time everything will be all sorted. Maybe the video quality will get better as well. We're gonna try fix that. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing more of these online as long as you guys are okay with it. Nah, actually, to be honest, it doesn't matter if you're okay with it or not. We're doing it anyway. This isn't a democracy.
What is a
But
tyrant, guys?
thank you for
What are
listening
you?
anyway.
You virtue signaling. All right then.
Yeah, bro, that was all just what's
But
it called? Platitude grat. I forgot what it's called. I was all just that. I was just saying you've got an option, just so you feel happy, but you don't have an
uh,
option.
oh my god.
Nah,
All
okay.
right, China. All right.
China, Russia, all of them.
China, right?
They
You
want
know,
Britain to be like that as
square
well, bro.
system. Listen.
Uh, anyway, thank you for listening. Thanks for joining, Khushal.
Yeah, thank you for joining,
Uh,
Wally,
you're
and all
welcome.
the best.
Goodbye.